Well, good afternoon, everyone, and happy Thursday. If you're watching us live, that is. I welcome you back to this absolutely amazing interview-a-thon. It has been rocking all week long, and we are in the final day, day 4. And my goodness, these interviews have absolutely been fire, every one of them. And I am so blessed and honored to be able to host these conversations in this space for the DrFaye Talk Show, which is, by the way, is on Brand on Demand Television Network on the top performing high level television platforms, Roku, Amazon, and soon we're branching off. We're rebooting inside of Apple. We're on Amazon Fire and Amazon Influencers Live. So blessed and to be able to channel all of this across social media as well simultaneously is a true blessing. And if you've been watching, you notice that we bring the best of the best, some of the most powerful voices that I have met in recent weeks who are absolutely changing the landscape of our culture, shifting the tides, if you will. And one of those guests is an amazing coach and mentor and consultant who's bringing so much value to us today. I want you to help me welcome none other than my friend and darling cohort, Dr. Carmen McNeil Klingsdale. Welcome, Dr. Carmen, to the stage.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
It's a blessing to have you today. You know, it is. Okay, guys, something's going on squirrely there. Somebody must have been asleep and just woke up. But it's okay. Chill out, folks, back there. But we are in a place right now, Dr. Carmen, that voices like yours and mine, as well as other women, is so important right now that we understand who we are and our fire and our passion, what we've been sent to this earth to do right now. And I know you have a lot of backstory, and I would like for our audience to hear a little bit of that as you offer this conversation about this powerful topic and the power of dads and daughters relationships. And I am so open for that. And we're going to try to stick to our time. But if we go over, please don't throw rocks at me. Go ahead, Dr. Carver.
Yes, well, thank you again for having me, Dr. Faye, and having this amazing platform. So I'll just share a little bit about my backstory. So in terms of my education, my professional training is in psychology. I have a doctorate in psychology. I'm a tenured professor teaching a variety of psychology courses. But what actually got me here to talking about this very important topic, there are a couple of key steps. One, I'm very clear that I was put on the planet to empower girls and women. I'm very clear about that. And I also know that when we can empower girls earlier, we can help them grow up into women who are already empowered. So I started most recently really working with girls and helping them to embrace their bodies, understand their menstrual cycle, how to use it as a guide for self-care. And so I developed a workshop called Power to the Period. And so it's so beautiful to connect them and connect them with their mothers. It's absolutely fantastic. So I still do that. From there, I realized that there were so many grown women who had residue around their cycles and lots of room for healing around their menstrual cycle. So from that, I developed Rock with Your Menstrual Rhythm. So that's for grown folks who menstruate, teaching them about how spiritual the work is in terms of using the menstrual cycle, right? And so from there, I realized that in terms of my work with girls, there are so many dads who want to be able to support their daughters through the adolescence journey, but had no clue how to do that, had no guidance. So that's how I got into this space.
Wow. So you're sharing all of this, and I am thinking, gosh, we could have done an interview-a-thon with just you and your different hats that you wear, lady. But you know, it's such a blessing because this is so unique and so needed, and because there are so many single dads who don't have a clue. dads, period, because period, have been left out of the conversation. And you have created a platform that opens up the space for them to have that conversation and be able to support their daughters and even their wives and you know the women in their lives. So tell us about how you go about, just give us some bullets on how to go about building this relationship between these dads and their daughters.
Yes, yeah, and you're
First,
so right.
first of all, if you would please tell me about some of the problems you've seen in these dad and daughters relationship, other than the fact that they're clueless about the period.
Well, that's a big piece. So we definitely want to address that and why they are clueless. But in terms of some of the challenges that I've seen, studies show that girls, when they begin to enter puberty and adolescence, they can actually feel their dads distancing themselves as
Mhm,
they begin to go through this blooming phase.
mhm,
And a lot of times it's because, and this is not all dads, but it is for a lot of dads, that they feel awkward. They're not ready for their little princess to bloom. They're not ready for daddy's little girl to go through those types of transitions. And so lots of girls can sort of feel that distancing. I even had one adult woman who was, of course, a girl at one time, reflecting on her relationship with her father when she was young. And
mhm.
she said, Dr. Carmen, when I was a kid, my dad was so affectionate. And then when I started going through puberty and adolescence, he stopped being affectionate. And I thought he didn't love me anymore.
Wow.
And because of that, now as an adult reflecting in hindsight, she
Mhm.
said, I sought that affection in other places,
Oh.
where, other places where her dad may not have wanted her to seek them, right? And so this is really, really important. Dad's involvement
Mhm.
is so important for girl self-esteem,
Yeah.
for their body positivity, for
Mhm.
knowing, who they are other than their looks. I
Yeah.
mean, this is huge. It is really, really huge.
Yeah. Oh, gosh, the pain and the effect that that has on young women going into puberty, and then ultimately the effect that it has on a woman when she's preparing to get married, when she's having her own babies, how much of that carries over because dad was not emotionally available to her as she went through this cycle, because that was mom's job. Oh, continue, Dr. Carmen.
Yes. And I certainly don't blame dads. This is not about a blame game. It's just about stating the facts for a lot of people.
Yeah,
So I want
exactly.
to go back to, talking about why it is that dads are not aware, of what's going on. There's a couple of things that are happening there. One
Mhm.
is that girls and women are socialized to keep, particularly their periods, a secret. It happens in secrecy. You
Right.
don't talk about it, right?
Mhm.
And so there's a lot of embarrassment that they have. I've had so many women tell me and girls tell me, when they're in the bathroom, they don't want to be crinkling the paper of the pad because they don't want the next person to hear about it, right? So a
Mhm.
lot of this is done in secrecy. So and there's a lot of anxiety around being able to keep it a secret. So, because of that, because of the secrecy around it, boys grow up into men not knowing what the menstrual cycle is all about. They just don't know. There's a lack of information.
They do
And
know that the girl can get pregnant.
they know that part. They do know that part. And certainly as a dad, that is what contributes to them having a lot of anxiety and talking with their daughters. So we'll talk
Yeah.
about that.
Yeah. Let me ask you this, Dr. Carmen. Why is there shame around our periods?
Mm.
Where does that come from? Why are girls taught to keep it a secret? I would like to break that.
Yes. Well, it's going to take a big hammer Dr. Faye,
No
to
doubt. No doubt.
to break that. And there are certainly lots of different theories about that. One has to do with patriarchy and devaluing women in general.
Wow.
So that's big. Again, that's a
Mhm.
whole nother episode.
My
But
God.
there used to be a time way, 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 way back when women were really revered for their intuition,
Yeah.
for their knowingness that couldn't necessarily be explained, by science.
Yeah.
And then we sort of had this morph and, thinking of these, women spiritual knowers and healers as like witches, like, ooh, we don't understand this.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
so a lot of times when we don't understand something, it's easy to think negatively about it. It's
Right.
easy to denigrate it.
Yeah.
Um, and so that's some of the origins behind why there's so much shame and secrecy around it. But the period, the menstrual cycle is necessary for human beings to continue.
Exactly.
So it deserves reverence, it
Yes.
deserves respect. And
Mhm.
when we can talk about it in a way that's honoring, especially actually for everyone,
Sure.
when we can talk about it in a way that's honoring, then
Yeah.
more people will have more compassion
Mhm.
around talking about it.
Yeah. The conversation definitely needs to be hosted. And and I know folks that if when you're watching this, we're live or replay, as you're watching this, you're thinking, oh my gosh, they're talking about the period. But what we're talking about is relationship. The period is just part of it. It is the thing that has created a strain on intimate and emotional intimacy for women and for the men in their lives. So Dr. Carmen is offering programs and framework to help culture come out of this place of shame and celebrate the menstrual cycle because it is the giver of life, right? So go ahead, Dr. Carmen.
Yes, well, thank you for affirming that. It is, so very important. But I wanted to talk a little bit about why it's hard for dads to, talk with their daughters
Yes,
and
please.
lean into this,
Yeah.
because dads get really nervous. Like I said before, it's often a surprise when their daughters need a bra, when they're ready for a bra, or it's a surprise when their daughters start their period. And so they're shocked, almost, immobilized,
Mhm.
and they're really not sure what their role is, in terms of this aspect of her development. And frankly, dads are afraid that, yes, now their daughter is biologically able to get pregnant,
Right.
right? That's like the biggest fear.
Yeah.
But there are other fears too. Dads really, really want their daughters to be able to come and talk with them about anything.
Mhm.
Their dads are terrified of what girls are seeing on social media.
Yeah.
Um, Girls trying to look older and be sexy and, all of that. Those are, real things that they are terrified about. And so I do definitely want to affirm for all dads, everybody watching,
Yeah.
that dads, your experiences are so important in terms of this aspect
Yeah.
of her development. Because if she doesn't have what I call your special dad mojo, if she doesn't have that, then
Mhm.
she may be looking to other sources for how to grow up. She might be looking to peers who don't know anything either.
Right.
She might be looking to older teens,
Yeah.
and or social media. So our daughters really need your special dad mojo. And so what I do is help to provide that conversation template, because
Yeah.
dads are nervous, right? It's
Yeah.
uncomfortable to talk about, periods and sex and in an age appropriate way. Like it's uncomfortable to talk about dating and, all of these things. And
Right.
so I help to really reduce that awkwardness,
Mm.
um, that embarrassment, because dads are just as embarrassed as the daughters are. And really, really give them simple steps to follow so
Yeah.
that they can lean into that father daughter relationship.
Oh, wow. What are a couple of those steps, just to microcosmic look at it? What are a couple of steps that you talk to fathers and daughters about?
Yes. So before I share the steps, I will say that this type of work, as I mentioned, is radical love, right? This is spiritual work. And so when we're talking about any kind of relationships, it's important that we work on self,
Yeah.
right? It's important
Mhm.
that we're able to do some self reflection. And so that's really, really important for dads, frankly, who may not have a whole lot of experience doing self reflection and introspection. So that's important because it might be new. So
Mhm.
I'll share three steps. And so the first one is for dads to create a vision of what they want for their daughter's adolescence.
Mhm.
How do they want her to experience it? What sort of friends do they want her to have? How do they want her to, think about her body? How do they want her self-esteem to be? And so when dads can create a really vivid picture,
Mhm.
a really detailed picture of the vision that they would want for their adolescence,
Mhm.
that leads you to the next couple steps. So that sort of reflecting, is so important. And think about, what do you want for your daughter? What do you want to see? If you could wave your magic wand, what would you create? So that's going to be step number one.
Let me ask you this before you go to step number two here. Okay, so they have to have a vision for their daughter. What do they want her to what kind of woman they want her to be really? Because that's the formative, those are formative years, and she's developing, her hormones have changed. She started to feel differently and experience different emotions toward boys. Instead of punching them in the face, she now wants a kiss. And so what kind of oh gosh, where was I going? What kind of response are you getting from dads as to what they want for their daughters? I'm
Yes.
I'm curious.
Yeah, yeah. In terms of dad's vision, so one I'm kind of weaved in already, and that is the vision that they have is they want their daughters to be able to come to them and talk
Mhm,
with them about tough situations. Another thing that they want is when daughters are faced with difficult decisions,
mhm,
because as they grow and mature, there's more social demands. You're interacting with more
yeah,
folks when they might be propositioned for sex. They might be propositioned for drugs or alcohol or to engage in risky behavior.
mhm,
And what dads are wanting is that their daughters are confident in terms of making healthy decisions. That's one
mhm,
of the things that they would wave their magic wand about. Some dads are able to weave into their vision academics. They really want their daughters to do well in school.
mhm,
So those are some of the things. And I think the biggest thing is that when their daughters are grown and look back on their adolescence,
mhm,
they want it to be a positive vision. They want it to be a loving vision. And dads want, when their grown daughters reflect back, they want their daughters to think fondly of them
sure.
during this part of their development.
Yeah, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. I can see how you're weaving this tapestry with this golden thread of love and communication and creating this foundation for a lasting relationship between fathers and daughters because that bond that's set at that foundation will last a lifetime.
Absolutely.
So beautiful. I celebrate you for that. I really do. I celebrate this work. So go ahead. You had the second step.
Yeah, so step number two is for dads to reflect on their own puberty. And so, right. And so this usually surprises dads a little bit.
Mhm.
One, because, we're adults. It was a lot of years ago, many years ago, when we were, 12 and 13. And for a lot of things, we are disconnected. We've
Mhm.
forgotten, right? But
Yeah.
it's really, really important for dads to spend some time thinking about their own adolescence journey.
Yeah.
What they learned, who was involved in their teaching, mistakes that they made, right?
Mhm.
That's really, really important. How did they learn about bodies, right?
Right.
That is so
because
important.
hormones then are still hormones today. That's that's
Exactly.
one thing that didn't change with social media.
Right.
It just social media just gives it more room to go on the adventure and
Right.
explore. But please go on.
Yes. And so once dads have done step number one, they've created that comprehensive vision for their daughters. They've done step number two, they've reflected on their own puberty and their own adolescence journey.
Mhm.
Step number three, which is also going to likely be new for most dads, is they need to share with their daughter, share the vision they have for her,
Mhm.
and share their adolescent story.
Oh,
You
wow.
see, yes, let that sink in.
Mhm. Mhm.
That's why, see, you can sort of see why this is spiritual work. This is radical love going
Yeah,
on
because
here.
in that moment I'm thinking, oh yeah, my dad was a boy. My dad was a boy too. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And our kids, young people really sometimes it's hard for them to see us as human, you
Yeah.
know. It's
Yeah.
hard for them to, picture us being their age, but they want to, really, really connect to our humanness.
Mhm.
And so when we share our stories with our young people, it's such a connecting conversation because that opens the door if they want to ask some follow-up questions,
Yeah,
and what we're really talking about is creating, a culture in our family that engages
I hear that.
in these types of connecting conversations.
Wow. I've got to pause for a moment, but you continue because I'm processing this on creating a culture for our families. Because I'm thinking in this post pandemic rebirth era that we need this conversation so much more than ever before. And it's a calling of family back to community within itself. We've been so busy going all out there. It's time to come back in here. And I like this because this draws them back to conversation in, for to really see what's going on in each other's lives. And I think that many dads have not been taught, Dr. Carmen, to even sit down at the table long enough to have these conversations. I'm just so curious about how you move them through. So please go ahead. I want to follow along here.
Yes, absolutely. So doing those three steps is, and doing them like genuinely,
Okay.
spending time right in those three steps is enough to get that jump started. Right, that's enough to get them started. And what I really love about our Facebook group is that it's a wonderful community because one of the challenges for dads, Dr. Faye, is there's no well-known model for this type of fathering.
That's what I'm thinking. The entire conversation here today is like, okay, Lord, she's just creating this model because there's not one out there. I mean, there are books about certain things, but to go this deep, I've not seen anything that will
Exactly.
truly bring healing in the family, in
Exactly.
the family unit. Please.
Yes,
Go on.
and that's why that the community is so important for
Yeah,
dads to be able to support each other, pat each other on the back,
yeah.
use each other as a sounding board because this is new. This is game changing. As a matter of fact, my coaching program for dads is ccalled the Fatherhood Game Changing Program.
I love the
Um,
name because it fits.
Yes,
It definitely.
absolutely. So that community is so important. I and really, really encourage dads to not try to do this by yourself,
Mm.
because there are going to be times when you are so immobilized by embarrassment that you don't want to do it, or there are going to be times where you jump in, you lean in, and maybe that conversation doesn't go the way that you had envisioned or the way that you would like. It doesn't mean that you stop. It means that you get more support,
Yeah.
in how to move forward and continuing to create that culture of conscious connecting conversations.
I suppose you have many conversations where the relationship has spiraled out of control, so to speak, and dads feel as though they just can't talk to their daughter. She's being, in their mind, rebellious, defiant, won't listen. How do you, are there some tips and strategies that you offer those dads and daughters in those situations that are different than the others? I don't know.
So yeah, so there's a couple responses that I have to that. One is it's a testament that it's important to start early with these conversations.
Ah, yes, ma'am.
You
Yes, ma'am.
start before adolescence. So you
Yeah.
start when they're 8, when they're 9, when they're 10, right?
Mhm.
You start early creating that foundation, which
Yes.
makes it so much easier when the daughters do, arrive into adolescence. But the other thing that I would say is that it is a normal part of development for young people, boys, girls, every gender, when they get to a certain point where they are really trying to part with their childhood,
Mhm.
right? They're trying to assert themselves a little bit more. And
Yeah.
that's where, they have more friends. Their friends become more important than their parents. And so
Yeah.
that's a normal part of development. So it's really important for parents to recognize when their young people, when their kids are trying to separate themselves from childhood and look forward into adulthood. And so
Mhm.
it's a really, really interesting time of sort of straddling the fence,
Yeah.
between these two areas of development. And that's where a lot of the strife, can occur
Mhm.
with parent child relationships. And so, again, when it's really, really difficult, I always go back to sharing your story,
Yeah.
sharing when
Yeah.
you made mistakes, because we all have made mistakes, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Sharing what you would do if you could do it all over again. What would you do differently? You
And
know?
and on that note, I'm looked at the clock and do you know we're out of time already? It's really so I want for the next couple seconds, 30 seconds or so, if you would please tell people how they can get more of you, more of this conversation.
Yes. Well, I want to invite all compassionate, open minded dads who are willing to do whatever it takes on behalf of your daughters to join me on the next Dad's Puberty Playbook Masterclass. And so that is free. It's a 90-minute virtual training, and that is coming up on Tuesday, November 14th. It'll be at 6 p.m. Pacific time, 9 p.m. Eastern. And so you can register right now. I encourage you to do it now at bit.ly/dads masterclass. That's bit.ly/dads masterclass. And you will get so much more of me by participating in the masterclass. And then also, I really encourage, as I mentioned, the Facebook group where that community of support is. And you can go to bit.ly/empower teen daughters. That's where we have our Facebook group, Empower Teen Daughters, bit.ly/empower teen daughters. And then finally, if you're ready to, talk with me, I offer a free 30-minute one-on-one virtual call, and we can do sort of some game planning on what do you need. Maybe you need something for your daughter and you're a mom. Maybe you need something for your daughter and you're a dad. Maybe you need something for yourself in terms of your healing around your own menstrual cycle. And
Mhm.
so the audience can book that free session with me at bit.ly/Dr. Carmen session. So that's
Yeah.
DrCarmen session. So those are the three ways to get more of me.
That is fantastic. Dr. Carmen, thank you for sharing this much of you inside of this show, Dr. Faye Talk Show. I appreciate you so much, and I honor and respect your work highly. I celebrate it, and thank God I had the opportunity to spotlight it here today on the show. Thank you, and just know that I love you and appreciate you so much. And I'll talk to
Thank you,
you
Dr.
soon.
Faye.
Bye bye.
Thank you.
Bye. Well, folks, there you go. You heard it from Dr. Carmen herself. It's time to get community within family and how dads are lining up with her. to build those relationships with their daughter around their period and before their period so that they can continue to direct the daughter. You know, you can't lead if you haven't sat down to the table yet. Just gotta sit down, guys. You gotta talk, talk to your children, all of your children, and build those relationships with those powerful women that you're raising in this earth today. And we celebrate you dads for doing that. All of you single dads and your dads who are working hard to try to, you know, bring up a strong family unit. We just celebrate you and applaud you for that work. And listen, I love you and appreciate you for joining me today. I know that we're out of time, but I still want to invite you to stay tuned with me. Stay up on what I'm doing when I'm doing a masterclass, a workshop, a presentation, a TEDx talk, or whatever I am doing out there in the marketplace. If you want to stay updated, and I trust that you will, go to events.drfaye.com. That's events.drfaye.com, where you can follow along and know it before you ever see it posted. God bless you. Until next time, remember, the calling is a gift, but the choice is yours. See you soon. Bye-bye now.
Have you been feeling lately like your dreams are dead? That your vision will never come into fruition? Listen, I know how that can feel, but you don't have to stay there. If you're feeling like you're ready to build your confidence and embrace your message and move into your creative brilliance and create a lasting impact in your business and in your life, if you could answer, yes, that's me, to at least one of those, then I want to welcome you to the journey of transformation and empowerment. You're going to learn how you too can take the stage with confidence, with focus, with power, and empowerment. As a woman professional and leader, you can take your place in the world right now. You're in the right place at the right time. I'm DrFaye, and my grandmother was a midwife. And one of the things she practiced was to stop the pain. And I stand on her shoulders today to help as many women as I possibly can to stop the pain. So I want to invite you to a journey of transformation and empowerment, where there are hundreds, if not thousands of women already who are embracing transformation through their stories, through their testimonials. You can achieve wealth mastery and close the wealth gap and close every gap between the vision and your reality. Breathe life into your dreams again. Breathe life into your vision again. That is not about anything but your decision to click on the link. Go to events.drfaye.com. Make that decision now to join us, and together we will create a world where women professionals and leaders shine brighter than ever before and make a mark upon this world that can never be erased. So don't miss your opportunity. Don't be a spectator in the parade. Build your own float, girl. Come on. Go to the link now, events.drfaye.com, and I will love seeing you there. See you soon. Bye-bye now.